Now that you've taken delivery of your Pro model, we're going to show you how to install this at your house. For this video, we're using our Pro XL lift. It's going to be the same mechanics as a Pro model, just the dimensions are a little bit different. You'll find the dimensions on our website. But for this one, you'll see it comes saran wrapped and some cardboard to help avoid any scratches or dents during transport. So we're going to take this off. We're going to show you all the items that comes with your lift. We're going to lay them out and give you a good idea of how to install this at home with an engine hoist and a buddy. This is a quick breakdown of the tools that you're going to want to have on hand. These are our tools. You can use similar tools that you have on hand to install your lift. This is just, you're going to use this for your brake line connectors on the outside. This is a 3/4 socket, 7/8 socket. Channel locks, open-ended wrenches are great. You're going to have 14mm wrench, 3/4. Any type of tool that allows you to rotate the small connecting rod. A blade. This is preference. It makes it easier for you to cut the straps that the lift comes strapped with. And a set of Allen keys. With this, you'll be able to complete your entire install without any issues. With some garden scissors, it'll make these easier to take off. This is how your lift is going to arrive. The casters on the Pro and the Pro XL already come assembled, so you can just put those to the side. And as you see us during the install, we're going to be putting all the items in position for us to be able to install a little bit easier. So we'll just take you every there. Your Pro model will come with drip trays and a jack tray. That's part of our kit. So you'll find the drip trays. They're going to be in between these posts, and your jack tray will be on the bottom of that. So if you purchased it, we'll include that as part of your kit. So when you're laying out the crossbeam, you're going to notice that you have your locking blocks. You're going to want your crossbeam to be facing upwards, as you can see right here. For this video, we're going to be mounting the motor on our back left. Back meaning the back end of the lift from the loading side. So if you're loading the vehicle from the front, we're going to be loading and mounting the motor on the back left of this lift. So when you're facing the crossbeam, this is what's going to help you release the locking blocks on all 4 sides. So this will be facing up. Since when you pop it up, it's going to be facing the outside of the lift. So that's something for you to notate when you're laying out all your parts on the ground. So motor's going to be on the back left, so this part will be on the back left side of the lift. This secondary lock will always be facing on the bottom because this will be on the inside of the lift once we have the post popped. So you go around. Back it up a little bit. So we'll go through that one more time, making sure that the locking rod is going to be on the top side of your crossbeam. So when you pop the post up, it's going to be on the outside of the lift, not on the inside. You have your connecting rods. As you will see, they'll always be on the same side. This is where you connect your brake line to on both sides. So now we have it laid out where the motor is going to be on the back left of the lift. The connecting sides are always on the same side. On the Pro models, you're able to mount the motor on all 4 posts. This is the arm that allows you to attach the motor, and this will sit on top of the post. So this is your mounting bracket for your motor. We'll put this to the side on the back left. Your drip trays will be in between these 4 posts. So this, once you take out this post, you'll be able to take that out. Again, your rolling jack tray is going to be sitting on your bottom runway as well. These items you see here, these are your pulley covers. This is what's going to cover the pulley system. It's a safety mechanism. It allows anybody that has their hand on there not to get stuck on the cable. It's just a safety feature. So we'll put these pulley covers off to the side for now. As I mentioned, the Pro and the Pro XL, the casters already come assembled. So we can just set these off to the side as well. Your ramps are going to be coming right here. They're strapped on. You'll find your rolling jack tray underneath these as well. These we'll put in the front just to make it easier. These are going to weigh a little bit. These are going to weigh approximately 40 pounds. So they're a little bit more durable, but you're not going to have any issues with them warping over time. And they are going to be the same dimension as the runways. So the runways are 23 inches. These are going to also be 23 inches. Since you have the option to mount the motor on any of the 4 posts, this model comes with 2 different hoses. If you want to switch it to the back left or front right, depending on which side you want to choose, you choose the hose that allows you to get the line all the way to the front side where the motors can be mounted. This box will include some of the items you're going to need for your install. So we'll open that up with you. These are your sliders. You have 4 of these that go in between the 4 corners of your crossbeam. We'll show you where these go. You'll see one side's a little bit longer than the other on the L shape. We'll walk you through where to put that specifically. So here's your sliders. We're going to give Liam 4. I'll take 4. So you're going to have 2 sets of bolts. You're going to notice that they're different lengths. You're going to have your longer bolts. That's going to be on your loading side. So long loading, your shorter bolts will be on the back end where your stoppers will be. So we put these in place right from the start. So when we're installing the runways, they're very easily accessible. So again, these are our shorter bolts. We're going to put them on the back side of our lift. These are our longer bolts. This is where you're going to mount the brackets so you can be able to put your ramps on. We'll put these in the front side of the lift. So for the video purposes, we're just going to put everything in place for you so you know exactly and you get a visual of where each item is going to go. Each crossbeam will have 4 sliders and 2 covers that will hold the sliders in place as you're using your lift up and down. Other items that you're going to find in this box, we can go through them with you right now. These are your caster pins. This is what's going to go in between the casters and the posts to hold them in place. So we'll put 1 on each post for you right now. These longer threaded bolts are what is going to hold your pulley covers in place once you have everything mounted. Sometimes you will get these 2 items in the box. These you can dispose of. They're not needed, so we're just going to put these off to the side and dispose of them. This bag right here, this is what you're going to use to connect your brake line. And we're going to show you how these go and what is a good trick for you to use so everything lands perfectly in place. So this is going to be left side of the lift because we're mounting the motor on the back left. These are your hydraulic hose fittings. This will come with a 220 fitting in case you opted to go with a 220 motor and a 110 fitting, which the lift will come standard with a 110 motor. We'll put this where the motor is going to be. These other bolts, as we're installing, we're going to take you and show you where all these go. So these we're going to put off to the side and we'll install them with you as we're finishing up the install. So a trick is to put these sliders in place before you push your crossbeam through your post. Now, as you can see, here's your mechanisms. Here's your locking slot, your locking blocks, and your secondary locking block. So you want to put the shorter side. We'll pop it up so you can see. The shorter side of the L will be on the inside, so it doesn't interfere with any of the mechanisms inside the lift. And you'll just mimic that on the opposite side. What I like to do is once I have these bottom two in place, then we can lift together and put the crossbeam through. You can always adjust, making sure that these engage. You might need to move the post a little bit. So as you can see here, the sliders are in place. Now you can grab your other two sliders, put them in place. Shorter side will be facing the mechanism. There we go. Also, you can grab any of the cardboard that you use from the trash. And what we like to do is, we like to pull this. You're gonna have to cut the connecting. As you can see Liam cutting right now, allows us to be able to disengage the blocks. So what we do, disengage the locking block. You can put a piece of cardboard, or if you have anything else on hand, this will allow you to push the crossbeam down the post without having to worry about the locking block engaging every 4 inches. So now that this is disengaged, it's important you hold your secondary lock, and now we can both together put that back in. One hand holds the sliders in place, disengage the secondary block, and then we just push together. Don't forget you have your rubber block. So at some point, once you have enough clearance, you're going to want to lift it, reposition. As you can see, that's helpful, because if not, you're going to have all the weight on the front of the post, and it's going to be a little bit harder for you to pull that crossbeam down. So anything that this is about, I would say 4.5 inches, 5 inches, just something to elevate the post so it can make it easier for you to slide it back down. So once again, disengage the secondary lock. You can hold your sliders in place, and in unison we push the crossbeam down the post. So on this, communication is going to be important, because if you guys start pushing it at different rates, this is going to bind up and make it a little bit harder for you to push the crossbeam down. We normally make a habit of putting it on the 7th locking slot from the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're going to have 7 exposed locking slots sitting on the 8th. Disengage your secondary lock. Okay, we'll count it. Perfect, right there. Once you have it in place, take out the cardboard. Now it's locked in. Two, 4, 6, 7 exposed locking slots. We're going to do the same thing on this side. 2, 4, 6, 7. You can always check before you lift up the post. Make sure that the locking block is engaged. This is no longer coming down. So now, again, everything in unison. We lift up the post, pop it up. Since these posts are a little bit taller, we recommend that you put your caps on before you bring up the post. Now these, as you can see, there's an angle to it. This hole right here, this is where your cable is going to be fed through. So always face this angle towards the inside of the lift. So when these get popped up, you're gonna want this to be facing down and to my right. He's gonna be down and to his left. So we'll give you a visual from this front side, right here. Before we pop it up, this is the angle that you wanna see. This is where your cable is fed through, down and to your left on this post, down and to your right on this post. So now that we have our end caps in place, our cross beams in place, locked in, now we can pop up the post together. 1, 2, 3. That's good for now. This is our Pro XL. You can see the difference in heights on the posts. So this one, again, everything's gonna be a little bit heavier. So making sure you and your partner are working together, it'll make these posts pop up a little bit easier. Now we're gonna do the other side. We're gonna do the same thing, and we'll do it a little bit slower, and we'll walk you through every step of the way again. So you see we checked, lock-in slots are on the upside, on the top of the post, facing in. Now we can position our crossbeam in place to be able to put our sliders and wrap it around the post. We like to check, just make sure that everything is perpendicular to each other. Everything is going to be easy for us to maneuver since it's already heavy enough. We'll make it a little bit easier for you. So here's your sliders. Once again, the short side of the L will be on the inside mechanism. You can see here, short side of the L will be up here like that. Now with that, we have these two in place. You can easily spot if you're going to have any issues because you can see your posts maybe not lined up. So just take the time to make sure everything is perfectly in line with each other. Sometimes you might be a little bit farther, so the need of moving the crossbeam up a little bit, just like that. Forward. Now that we have the first two in place, we can put the next two on the top side. Shorter side of the bracket facing the mechanism. See that? It's going to be this way. These are in place. Grab your cardboard once again. He already cut the plastic. If you can't disengage this block, all it means is that you're a little bit too far into the post. So pop it out a little bit, pull out the locking block, put your cardboard in place, and then now you're ready to be able to move the post and the crossbeam in line with each other. Sometimes these fall out, it's no problem. You just got to put them back into place. And once you get them halfway into the post, they'll stay in place. Okay. So cardboard is in place. Your mechanism disengaged. Put your hand on these sliders so they don't pop out. And then in unison, again, you have your block underneath. Secondary lock disengaged. Slide it down together. Okay, so we're gonna count 7, 2, 4, 6, 7 exposed. Take out your cardboard. 2, 4, 6, 7. That's good. That's fine. Now we grab our end caps, because these are pretty tall. You want to put them now. If not, you're gonna have to grab a ladder to set these in place. These are pretty heavy, so it is also a safety feature. Put them on from now. That way, when you're dropping them on the top of the post, they're heavy, they don't catch your fingers. So we highly recommend that you put these in place before you put up your post. And again, you're gonna want this hole, because this is where your cable runs through, to be on the inside of the lift. So inside facing down, inside facing down. So now that we have everything checked off, locking slots on the top, the end caps are in position correctly, now we can pop up the post together. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, these are going to be the covers to hold your sliders in place. These will sit here, and the bolts, the shorter bolts, will hold them in place. So for right now, we're just going to put these off to the side. This is your caster pin. Again, we like to put everything in place so you're not looking for it or struggling to find the pieces. Each post will have its locking pin, and the pulley covers, the slider covers in place. So now that we are ready to bring in the runway into position, making sure that this C channel, which is what your Pro and Pro XL will come with, this will always be on the inside of the lift, because this is where your jack tray sits, your rolling jack tray. If you chose to purchase a air jack or a hand pump jack, this is also where the wheels are gonna sit in place. So any attachments that the Pros come with will have a C channel attachment. So this is, right now it's currently in the wrong position. So we're gonna flip it around, put it in place for us to be able to use our engine hoist, lift it up into place, and drop it on the cross beams. These, you have 2 different stoppers. So these stoppers are your removable stoppers. As you can see, the shape of these is what sits in between your runway, and these slide just in place just like that. So these are removable. These will always be on the front side of the lift, whichever side you're loading the vehicle on. This is what you're gonna use. So once you have a car loaded on, you always wanna make a habit of just putting this on your crossbeam. That way, if you have your car rolls off a little bit, this will stop it. These are your permanent stoppers. These will get mounted on the back side of your lift. These will stay on, so you can see the difference in the shape. You can see the difference in the shape. Removable, permanent. So these will put in the back side of the lift. This is your brake line. This is underneath on the bottom runway. We're gonna lay this down in place just so you can get a visual of which items are gonna go where. Take the plastic off of that, please. This is your handle. This will always be mounted on the side where you're mounting your motor on. So again, our motor will be on the back left. So this will be the back side. This will be on the back of the lift. This is on the opposite end. So this one will sit over here for now. We like to clean up as we go because again, everything is very heavy. So having things in the way just kind of will make the install process a little bit longer. It might get you a little bit frustrated. So as we go, we like to just clean up and have the area a little bit cleaner. That way we can maneuver, especially if you have casters, or whether you have a forklift or you use an engine hoist like we are. It allows you to move freely without having any obstructions in the way. This is your center brake line. This is what's going to be underneath the runway once we mount it on. And again, we'll take you through this step in detail because this is a very important part that allows you to disengage and engage the locking blocks at the same time. So for right now, we'll set this off to the side. So when getting ready to put the runway up, we like to put one side of the runway right in line with the crossbeam. Now, if you're putting this lift in a home or in a tight space, make sure that you give yourself enough space on the outside of the crossbeam to be able to feed your brake line through. So for example, right now, we need to be able to move the crossbeam through because there's an obstruction in the way. So that's important because once you have the runway in place, it's going to be very hard to move the lift. So think about it a couple steps in advance to make it easier. So right now, we have this runway in place with that crossbeam. Now we're going to bring this crossbeam towards this runway to give me enough space to put in my brake line. This one, take it slowly. We move one side at a time. Let's bring it towards me. So let's bring this out, the whole thing. Perfect. Now we're just eyeballing it, making sure they're right in line with each other. Okay. That's fine. It is one thing for you to notate. This is a Pro XL. You could go on a lower locking slot. That way you don't have to lift up the runway too high in case you have a lifting capacity or you're able to only raise it so far. But you can always drop it a little bit lower. That way allow you to lift up the runway, set it in place. But for this one, we're fine. Our engine hoist will be able to lift it up and put it into position right now. We use a tow strap with a carabiner to lift up the runway. Once you have a little bit of a tension on your engine hoist, or if you're using a forklift and you have this runway secure, now one of us can go in and take off the bolts that hold it in place. If you happen to find yourself in a situation where you have your post up, your cross beams are in place, but then you have an issue with raising, you're maxing out maybe your engine hoist, or you don't have enough clearance to be able to raise your runway into place, all you have to do is one person can lift up the crossbeam, disengage the main locking block, and as you're dropping it, this will engage. This is your secondary lock. Your partner will do the same thing. I'll show you. Disengage the locking block, drop. So now that this is freely, what you can do is put back a piece of cardboard. Here. Put it in between your locking block. That way you have two hands to be able to lift up and hold this engaged. So for this one, we're gonna drop it down to 3 locking slots exposed. So we're gonna drop it down to our 4th locking slot. So as you lift up your crossbeam, all I'm doing is with my shoulder, disengaging my secondary lock, and we're dropping it together and letting it go. Maybe you have to move a couple things out of the way. Let's drop the engine hoist. No, just bring it out. Perfect. Now we can drop it down to our fourth lock-in slot. Again, we're just lifting up our crossbeam, holding our secondary lock. One more. At that point, you can let the main lock engage. So there is still some freedom for you to be able to maneuver the lift, and it's not completely permanent. That way it can make it easier for you to bring up your runways in place. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, we're going to drop our cross beams a little bit lower so we can bring our runways into place. That's good. Okay. So as we're raising it, you have to disengage your secondary lock. So we're raising the crossbeam. I put a piece of cardboard so our main locking block doesn't engage on its own. Holding your secondary lock, or dropping it down. And we're going to let it sit on our fourth locking slot. There we go. Perfect. So now that we have our post perfectly in line to be able to get our runway on, sometimes it'll make it easier for you to move maybe one of the posts slightly outward so you can maneuver the runway into place. So I'll move this one out a little bit. Now we can bring the runway in place so you don't leave it. Go for it. Go for it. Okay, let's move these out a little bit more. You stay there. Okay. Now that we have tension on the runway, in case anything happens, that will hold it in place. Now we can go back, take the bolts that hold it into place. Small channel locks or smaller open-ended wrench will work great for these. This is a 7/8 bolt. All of these bolts that you're taking off the lift, you're not going to use. So this can all be thrown away. We put them off to the side so we don't get confused as to which bolts are for installing and which ones are for shipping. Don't forget to pop out these bolts, because if this will hold the shipping crate to your runway. So just taking these out, that way you'll be able to lift it freely. Nope. Again, open-ended wrench or channel locks. You may not have it strapped in the center. So for this one, you can see it's leaning a little bit towards one side. So I'll just stand on that side as my partner lifts up. Okay. Now that we have the runway off, what we can do is you can move the bottom runway out of the way. Don't go underneath. Push it towards me.
This?
Yep. I'll give you this runway. Hold this in place. Okay. So now he can lift it up. I can bring the crossbeam into place. Match it up. Now we're going to go back to those longer bolts. You're going to have a bolt, a crush washer, and a split nut washer, along with your tightening nut. We like to put the bolt on the inside with the washer, split washer, and the locking nut on the outside. That way there's no issues with the cables rubbing on the end of this bolt. So now that we have it into place, before he puts or relieves the tension off of it, we like to kind of get it into place as best as possible. These two holes are where you're going to mount your lag bolt, your bolts in. So they're pretty close enough. Now your partner can slowly drop the runway. This is the best time for you to be able to eyeball it, so you don't have to move the runway too much. This is pretty close to perfect, so you can feed your bolt through on both ends. It doesn't always work out perfect like this, so if it is out of line, all you have to do is move the runway slightly off to either side so you can have these holes match up to each other. So we have these bolts in. Now we're going to mount our bracket for our ramp. Again, crush washer, split nut washer, locking nut. For right now, we can just do it hand tight just to secure the runway in place. I like to put my hand on the inside, hold the bolt in place. We are going to be installing our permanent stoppers. So you can see the shape of these. Put your finger on the bolt so it doesn't get pushed back. Position it through perfectly in place. Once again, you have your crush washer, split nut washer, and your locking nut. Now that you have all 4 bolts in place, this is when we recommend that you now release a tension on your engine hoist, or if you're using a forklift, now you can drop it and let the runway sit completely on the crossbeam. It's just a habit. I put my finger on the back end of the bolt, pressure washer, split nut, locking nut. And again, we like to put the bolts facing the outside just so there's no interference with the cables. You can put it the opposite way. We just recommend it this way. It depends on preference if you don't like the look, but this is how we have our installers do it. We have the main runway on. This is the runway that has the cables pre-ran underneath. Now we're gonna wheel this one into position on the opposite end. Again, keep in mind that always the C channel will be on the inside of the lift. So the other runway, when you flip it over, This C channel will be on the inside as well. We like to leave these shipping crates attached. That way, once we have it closest to this runway, we can maneuver, lift it up off the caster or whatever you're using to be able to move this runway over. Okay, I'll lift up, you take off the caster. Ready? Come through, I got it. So now we're gonna flip this over. 1, 2. Bring it back towards you. Don't scratch. That should be good. We can maneuver with it with the cherry picker. Now we're gonna flip this so it's topside heavy. 1, 2. 1, 2. Give me a second. Give me a second. There, good. We're gonna lift this runway the same way that we did the first one, with a toe strap and our carabiner. This, just enough pressure, so if you were to move, the runway won't fall. Once you have enough pressure, we'll come back, take the bolts that hold the shipping crate together. So again, this is 7/8 bolt, smaller channel locks. Since there's pressure on this runway, you should be able to pull out these bolts that hold it in place pretty easily. I'll take this out. So this one's free, but just leave it in place for now because he needs to take that side off. Once that side's released, then you can both take off the shipping crate, and now it's just being held by the engine hoist. Perfect, I got it. As your partner is lifting up the runway, good trick for you to have your bolts in place. That way you can, as soon as it gets over the crossbeam, you can line it up, make it easier for the install. Okay, go up. Go. Okay. Push the whole thing forward. Yeah, that's perfect. So right here, you're gonna have your 2 holes for your runway. Before he drops it, get one of your bolts in place. You can do both if it's perfect. Now he can drop it. This is bolts in place. And as he's dropping, give me a second. You can come back and do the same thing. So as he's dropping it, this is the best time for you to be able to move your runway left or right so you can line up the holes. Go for it. You can see there, keep your hands clear of the runway lip. That way you're not struggling moving a 700-pound runway left or right by millimeters. So now these are in place, we can put our crush nut, our split nut, and our split washer and our locking nut together. You're good to drop. Now that we have our bolts in the crossbeam, we put our permanent stopper in place. You can hold your bolts with your finger. Same thing on the other side. Now you have your crush washer, your split nut, and your locking nut to hold it all together. Now that we have our bolts in place, these are 7/8. So since you have your split nut washer there, you don't really need a open-ended wrench or channel locks from stopping the locking nut from spinning. So your finger will hold it in place. Give it a couple turns. And then you can come back and tighten it all the way. Again, we're going to do the same thing. Your finger will hold it in place just to start it off. And then the split nut will engage, allowing you to torque it completely. We're going to do this on all the bolts. So you're going to have 8 bolts to tighten. These are your removable stoppers. I just put them into place just to get them off the floor. So this bag that we see here, this is the bolts that will hold your slider covers in place. Now, each post will have 2 bolts, 2 split nut washers, 2 crush washers. There are some extra, so it's not that you don't have it perfectly done. They do include a few extra of these just in case they get lost in the whole installing process. So don't worry about having some extra of these bolts at the end. You can keep them for future use. So this one, again, your pulley, so this one, your slider covers will go in place. You can see the shape of these. This is what holds your sliders in place. For this one, we're going to use the bolt, split nut washer first, then your crush washer. I'm going to hand tighten these for now. Again, on this side, you put your slider cover in place, your bolt, split nut washer, crush washer, and then you can hand tighten these. So that is your poly sliders, your slider covers, and your locking bolts in place. Once you have these hand tightened, you can go back and tighten it with the 9/16. You don't have to make this too tight, so you can lower the torque on your drill. Perfectly done. I have it on a setting 7, but anywhere in that range will be fine. You don't want to over tighten, so you might strip the bolt. So this is done. Now we're going to move over and run the cables. So we have the runways in place. My partner is putting on the slider covers. Now we're going to get to the more technical side of installing your lift. These cables are pre-ran, so you don't have to modify it. You don't have to change anything. What we're going to do now is run them through the correct direction. So all you're doing right now is you're taking off the locking nuts, your crush washer, and you're getting it ready for you to be able to feed the cables. Now, if you see under here, each cable, as you can see, it'll line up logically in the direction that you're going to pull this through. So this cable is run on the bottom pulley. Once you have your locking nuts and your crush washer removed, you're going to feed it through this slot right here. For right now, we're just going to leave that in place, put our parts on the runway, and we're going to do the same thing with the other cable. Remove the locking nut, remove the crush washer, and now you'll be able to give it a little bit of a slack. This is the bottom pulley, and you're feeding it through the slot. It doesn't usually happen. Just make sure you're not feeding the cable in a way that'll knot up your cables on before you're able to pull it out. So just make sure that they're free. Push the cable through. Now that you have it ran, we're going to do that on all 4 sides before we start pulling out the piston. That way we can give it enough slack to be able to run it up the post into the top cap. So let's go through that one more time. Remove the locking nut. Remove the crush washer. These shouldn't be tight. You should be able to remove it pretty easily. Now, make sure that the cable is free and you're not going to create a knot when pulling it. Pull the cable through. Feed it to the top end. Now, since this cable is a longer one, you're going to feed it through all the way to the other side, through this slot in the opposite runway. Here's a visual that you want to see. I put my parts right on the runway, and we're going to do the same thing with this side. Give it a little bit of slack. There we go. Now, the best thing to do, make sure you don't mount the motor. You don't pressurize it, because once you pressurize the motor, it is going to be very hard for you to give yourself slack on these cables. So I'm doing this all before we mount the motor. This is not pressurized. This is not a pressurized piston. That way I can maneuver and push the piston out to give myself slack. The slack, all you're doing is you're holding onto this bracket right here, giving it a couple pushes. It should give you some slack pretty easily. Now you see I have enough length on these cables to be able to run them up to the top caps easily without having to struggle. We're going to feed this cable through the other runway, and in place. Now we have all of our cables ran to the appropriate posts. Now we're going to go to the top side of the runway and feed them to the top caps. I'll go over here. I gave myself enough slack on that piston so I can pretty easily pull on this cable. The cable is going to go through the pulley closest to the post on the outside of this. Keep in mind, this is activated by tension. So this is how your cable is going to look. Now, we like to have the cables, you have your crush washer and both locking nuts on the top. Now, you're going to see sometimes, hey, my cables are a little bit too short. The runways don't go to completely to the bottom. These cables will stretch. So if that is an issue, all you have to do, once you have everything assembled and you have a car loaded, you can let the car sit overnight and it'll stretch your cables out just enough for you to be able to hit the runways to the floor, and it'll also give you a little bit more lifespan on these cables. So let's look again at the configuration of this. The cables run through the pulley on the outside, feeds on the inside. I put both my locking nuts. Now I'm just going to leave about 3 of the threads on the top showing on all 4 of the posts. Once we have the lift completely assembled, I'll walk you through how to level your lift so that all your locking blocks will engage and disengage at the same time. And we're going to do this on all 4 posts. Give yourself slack on the cable. Feed it around the first pulley on the outside of your secondary lock. Now you can see how important it is when you're setting up the initial install. Now you see why the top caps need to be facing inside of the lift, because now this cable will feed perfectly in place to the top cap. Again, I'm going to show 3 threads on the top showing, just to keep a sense of uniform throughout the whole install. Feeding it on the outside of the pulley, inside of the secondary lock. And now for the last one. Now you might have some concerns that when you're operating the lift, will this bend? It is normal. Once the lift is pressurized, you will see some tension being put on this arm. That is completely fine. That's the way it's supposed to work. So we're going to run the cable all the way up. Okay. Now that we have the cables ran, now we can start assembling our brake line. Now that we have our cables ran up to our top caps, and one note, it is important that you run your cables first. That's because now they're out of the way of where your brake line is going to go. So the cables need to be run up to the cap post first before you start assembling your brake line. This is your center section. What you can do is you're going to see these slots on the inside of your runway. You're going to feed your center section through them. You're going to have a second one on this side. You're gonna have it in place. These items is what's gonna hold your brake lines together. These are your connectors. This is gonna connect your brake lines together. These are your spacers. So you're gonna see this is just a singular tubular spacer. You have 2 of these. These are your locking nuts. So now that you have your center section in place, what you wanna do is put 2 locking nuts, 1 on each end. These you can give yourself pretty good clearance on it. These are going to come back and tighten up. On this one, it's very important that you have the same spacing on both ends. That way the center brake line becomes one solid rod for you to be able to disengage and engage your locking blocks together. So now that we have this locking nut in place, we're going to put our second one on this side of the brake line. Again, this one you can feed and give yourself enough space. You'll be able to move this back once you have this in place. This one, what I like to do is gauge where the center section of it is, put my locking nut in place, and feed it all the way through. You have a slot cut out in here. That way it gives you a little bit more room so you can maneuver and use tools to get onto this side. As you can see, there's a cutout right there. So it's perfect for you to utilize it. We're going to put our second connector exactly the same on this side. Now we're ready for our handle side and our locking side for our brake line. These are your spacers. This side, as you can see, will be on the opposite side of where you're mounting the motor. These you just remove by hand. You have your bolt and your split nut in place. Insert your spacer. Feed it through the hole that's adjacent to your mounting bracket, both for your permanent and your removable stoppers. I'm going to feed this side through. Now we're going to go do the side with the handle. This, you should be able to remove it by hand. If not, size 14 millimeter wrench, you'll be able to remove it, or a 9/16 socket. You'll be using these same tools after to tighten these up after you install it. So we're going to put our spacer onto the rod, feed it through the hole. Now, before we do anything else, we're going to come back underneath the runway and put our locking nuts onto the ends of our brake line. This one, you want to feed it all the way through. And if you want to come on this side with me, one tip is if you hold this, have your partner come on the back end. So you can see I'm holding this in place. And you're gonna have your partner rotate the handle until you get to the center section of this adapter. You should be able to hold it by hand. If not, channel locks or open-ended wrench will do the job. Perfect. Now we're gonna go to the front side. We're gonna do the same exact thing. The reason for those spacers is that will give you the right distance so this brake line is still tight enough for you to be able to engage and disengage your locking blocks without tightening it too far onto the crossbeam, allowing you to have some friction when operating the lift. So we're gonna put the locking nut in place all the way to the back end, position it to the connector, and have your partner rotate the rod. This is going to be clockwise to tighten. So now that this is, you can see, let's give it one rotation counterclockwise just to show you that there can be a little bit of a play. That's perfectly fine if you have some play. Now you're going to want to have the same spacing. So as you can see, this one has a little bit less thread inside. So what you can do is just rotate, give yourself enough play, and then you can loosen it up on the back end. Once again, you're going to want to have similar threads engage onto your connector. That way it becomes solid. But now we have it positioned. You're not going to tighten these just yet. Now we're going to complete the install on your brake line. Okay. Let's take the time to notice small things on this part of the install that'll make the lift run smoothly, and you're not going to have to go back and modify or tighten things up. So to start, this rod right here, you're going to want to tighten as much as possible. That way you make this as short as possible. The reason why that is, the shorter that this is, the more leverage you have with this handle to disengage this locking block fully out of the post. That way you're not having any issues where this block is disengaging just slightly and it might catch the locking slot, giving you issues when you're lowering the lift. So again, this needs to be as short as possible to give you the most leverage. So you can use a small Phillips head, or in this case we use this. Now don't over tighten because you could bend the connecting rod, but I just do it to where there is some tension. Now that it's in place, you can tighten these up, just hand tighten. Now, it's important that you see this handle needs to be facing up, and this direction of this connector should be always slightly away from your post. Again, let's say that one more time. This angle needs to be away from the post. This is because you need to be able to have leverage so that when you disengage the handle or you disengage the blocks, you're pulling towards the post, pulling this locking block down. So when you're installing it, this is as short as possible. Now, based on this, you grab the bolt that you removed in the very beginning. And you can hand tighten it. As you can see, the angle of this block is away from the post. Now you can come back and adjust this so it lines up with the second hole. You have your bolt and you feed it through. Now that you have your bolts in place, you can come back and tighten it up. This is a 14 millimeter wrench. These are threaded, so there's not going to be a need to put any locking nuts on the back end. You're just tightening it with the wrench. These you don't have to over tighten. As soon as you feel some type of pressure, you can stop. It's hand tight. We're gonna finish off with this side. So now that the second bolt is hand tight, we're gonna go back through each of these locking nuts and just hand tight. They don't have to be over tightened. The last one is on the opposite end. This one you might need to pull the rod a little bit away from the locking block, and then you can hand tighten. Now we're gonna do the same thing and on this install on the front side of the lift. So again, on this side, we're going to tighten this as much as possible, just so you can have the shortest distance giving you the most leverage. This is already tight. We're just going to hand tighten these locking nuts back into place. Now again, this needs to be facing away. The top side of this block needs to be facing away from the post. That way the leverage is in the right direction. We're going to first put the bolts. We're going to do the same thing with your top rod. So as my partner finishes this part of the install, now we're going to take you underneath the runway to finish off your brake line. We have our handles in place for the brake line. Now what we're going to do is we're going to tighten in sequence our locking nuts underneath for our brake line. So you can see we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 in sequence. The reason why we do this is to avoid any kinks of pressure in between the locking nuts and the connector. So we're going to use an open-ended wrench to hold the center section in place, and we're going to use a size 3/4 wrench to tighten up these locking nuts. Now that this is tight, we're going to move on to this one. Hold this in place. This, you want to tighten it pretty tight, since this is going to be the only point of contact that disengages and engages your locking blocks. Now we're going to move on to the third locking nut and to the fourth. Use our open-ended wrench and our size 3/4 socket. Our 3/4 wrench. You can see these cutouts. They're made specifically to give you just a little bit more leeway for you to be able to utilize your tools and not have to struggle as much. So now we have our locking nuts tightened in sequence from one side to the other. It doesn't matter if you're going from the back to the front, front to the back. Just make sure it is in sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're done with the brake line. Now we can start putting the pulley covers on, and now we can put the motor and pressurize the piston. We're going to install our pulley covers. So you can see the shape of it. This slot will be positioned right in place of your secondary lock and your cable. So you can see here, I'm feeding this facing down and the open slot towards the secondary lock. So this is just going to be fed in line, just like that. Now that's in place, you're going to grab this bag, which has your longer bolts, and you're going to have 3 locking nuts per pulley cover. So I'm going to grab the bolt, 3 locking nuts. You can do it in any direction. What we like to do is put the bolt facing this way. You can start feeding the bolt through the locking nut, because you're going to have 1 locking nut on the closest to the pulley cover, 1 locking nut closest to the cross beam, and a 3rd locking nut on the back end of the bolt. That way you can tighten it. This is going to be hand tight. You're not going to want to over tighten this. This is just so there is a safety feature, so no hands get stuck in between the cable when you're operating. This is just a safety feature. You don't want to over tighten this, or else you will warp the pulley cover and cause some friction. That's that. Now that we have our longer bolt ran through the crossbeam, you're going to have 4 of these smaller bolts. These just come with crush washers. These will go right there. And again, this can just be hand tightened just to hold it in place. That is all you're doing to install your pulley covers. So quick checklist. We have the runways in place. All of the locking nuts have been tightened. We have our cables ran through. We are getting our pulley covers installed. We have our brake line fully assembled and tightened. Now we can start installing our motor before we pressurize it. Since this one, we are mounting the motor on the back left. Again, this is the back left when you're facing the loading side. We're going to mount the handle, the motor mount, up first. It's a little bit heavy if you want to mount the motor first. So what we're going to do is we're going to mount this. This mounts to the top cap. On this Pro XL and the Pro model as well, you can shift the motor from the side to the front side of the post just to give yourself a little bit more space. Let's say you want to bring another lift closer to your this lift that you're installing. You have multiple lifts, or maybe you have some clearance issues with your walls. You can now rotate the arm or the mounting bracket to the front side of the post. That way you don't have an additional approximate 16 inches extending outside of the lift. So for this lift, we're going to mount it just to the side, and I'll show you how to do that now. You're going to have these bolts that come in the kit. They're slightly longer, just about 3 inches. They come with crush washers in here. These will get mounted on the top side. These we can use a 9/16 socket. I like to prep the bolts beforehand. So put all your crush washers in place. It's easier to have your partner help you, but if you're by yourself, set up all their bolts together. All 4 of your caps will have the 4 slots for you to mount your mounting bracket on. So you can choose to put this mounting bracket on any of your posts. For this one, we're using it on the back left. We have the bracket in place. Lift up a little bit. Again, this is a 9/16 socket. This one you can have a little bit more torque. Now that this is secured in place, we can take out our motor. And again, this you can do it by yourself, but it does help to have a partner help you to hold the motor in place as you feed the bolts. This is your bolts for your motor. You're going to have 4 bolts, crush washers, split nut washers, and your locking nut. So these are going to line up Your crush washer and your split nut washer will be on the inside. So I'm just gonna grab the first one to get it into place as my partner puts the motor up. We like to keep the plastic on when we're installing, just in case there's some oil dripping out when you're filling up the reservoir. So we leave the plastic on. See, your locking nut's gonna be in place. You're gonna have your crush washer, split nut washer, locking nut. You can hand tighten this, and then we can go around and put up. Move it a little bit. There we go. Now that you have one on each end, you have a little bit more time to be able to put the last two. You might need to lift it up a little bit just to get it into position. Again, crush washer, split nut, and locking nut. We're gonna tighten these up with a wrench. I'll take you through how to install your hydraulic line. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the Pro XL and the Pro model have a great feature that allows you to put the motor on any of your posts. Now, standard position is gonna be the front right, back left when you're facing the loading side of your lift. So front right, back left. If you want to put it on the front left or back right, all you need to do is take the longer hose that comes with your kit already, because now instead of feeding your hose from the piston down here to your motor, you're gonna have to go longer towards your front left or back right. That's why there's a difference in the length of these hydraulic fluid hoses. Again, if you're doing it standard front right or back left, you can use the smaller, shorter hose. If you want to put the motor on the front left or back right, all you're doing is you're shifting the angle of this fitting the opposite way so you can feed this hose towards your front left post. That's all you're doing. Again, this hose is going to be fed to the back left mounting position on this lift. This hose comes pre-installed. These two fittings, depending on the motor that you chose, standard motor that comes with it is a 110. You're going to utilize this fitting. If you went with a 220 upgrade, you're going to use the shorter end, the shorter fitting. And that all it is you're switching the fitting of the motor. That way it connects to your hose. The way that this fitting works, this is for your 110 motor. Best thing to do is you can tighten this fitting right to the hose before you feed it through the runway. For this one, we can grab our 3/4 socket and our open-ended or our channel locks. And you just give it a good turn, make sure it's completely tight to avoid any leaking. Now that you have this in place, this washer that you took off gets mounted on the outside of the fitting, attaching it to your runway. Good trick is continue to have your 3/4 wrench, or you can utilize a channel lock to hold your fitting in place while you tighten the outside washer to your runway. Now that this is tight, you can mount your hydraulic fluid hose. One side of your hose will have a 90-degree turn. This one will get mounted onto your motor. This is going to be a 3/4 wrench. It's very important that you don't over tighten this. This can strip. So we're going to hand tighten it to start. You can also add some Teflon tape or thread sealant on here if you want to be a little bit more cautious, but these are pressurized. But now that it's on there, again, it's a 3/4 wrench. Give it a good turn. The side that does not have a 90-degree turn will then connect to your fitting that's already ran through your crossbeam. This one you can hold the inside setting of your fitting as you tighten this so it doesn't turn on you. Now that we have our hydraulic fluid line connected to our motor, now we can fill the reservoir with our hydraulic fluid and pressurize the piston. Now we're getting ready to put on our casters. One thing for you to note is the shape of the casters. This locking pin will go in between the caster and the post, but it's very important for you to note how the shape of this caster works. You see this angle goes inside, that way it catches the crossbeam. Again, when installing the caster, make sure that this angle goes inside of the lift to catch the crossbeam, because if this is facing the other way and this angle is on the outside, you're gonna miss the crossbeam. So the shape that you wanna mimic is this that you see here, where the caster is wrapped around the post and it goes angled in towards the crossbeam. This you can just line it up, feed the locking pin in place. Now note, there's nothing that's gonna hold it in place. So just pushing it, that way both sides have the same distance sticking out. That's it. We're gonna do the same thing with this side. As you can see on this end, the angle is opposite. The angle goes towards the crossbeam. We're gonna put the caster wrapped around the post, feed the locking pin through. Now you can see the shape. Casters are in place, angles goes in, so that way when you drop the lift, this crossbeam sits right on the handle of the caster. And that's it for that. Now that we have the oil in the reservoir, you're going to pressurize it. Don't worry, it might take a few seconds for the hydraulic fluid to be running into the piston. So usually it takes about maybe 20 to 30 seconds to pressurize, but we're running it. As it's running, keep note, you're gonna want these cables to be in line with the pulleys, because if you don't, then you're gonna have some problems with giving yourself slack to run it back into. So we already made sure that the cables are inside of each pulley and around the secondary lock. As you'll see, once it starts pressurizing, it'll push back the secondary lock, and now we're gonna raise the lift. As you're hearing, or what you will hear is, as the lift is going up, you're gonna hear all 4 of your locking blocks engage. What you want to hear is a single sound where all 4 locking blocks engage at the same time. If they're not, let's say you have some slope on your floor, causing one of the locking blocks to engage either earlier or later than the rest, that's not a problem. That's why we have some thread on the top that allows you to tighten and adjust the locking blocks. So for now, we're gonna let it sit there. We have our lift raised and not engaged. Therefore, we can disengage our locking blocks. Right now is a good time for you to make sure that you have everything on your locking brake line installed correctly. You'll know this because when you disengage your locking blocks, you will be able to see from one corner all 4 of your locking blocks disengaged. Now, we'll show you again. I'm pulling this handle down 1, 2, 3, 4. You have a sufficient enough clearance so you're not going to have any issues with one block engaging and causing the lift to tilt, or one side to engage, making the lift unstable. So we did our brake assembly perfectly. We can see that all 4 locking blocks are disengaging at the same time. Now what we'd like to do is we lower the lift so that the locking block will sit in between one of the slots. As you see here, our locking block is sitting in between the slot. And what we're going to do now is we are above the 10th slot. We're about 2.5 inches above it. Now I'm going to walk around and make sure that that is the exact same distance on all 4 posts. Let's say this floor is a little bit higher, therefore this block might be a little bit closer to that slot. All you're doing is adjusting the cable on the top, giving it a couple turns so you can lift that side a little bit more, and making sure that all 4 posts have the same distance. So we're going to raise this one up a little bit. We'll walk to the front of the lift. This side looks perfect. We're on the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, right above the 10th locking slot. It's about 2.5 to 3 inches right above. This side seems a little bit lower, so we're gonna drop this cable down so it sits a little bit lower, hitting right at the 2.5 inches. That is the quick breakdown of how you can adjust your lift. Again, this is gonna be done maybe every 2 to 3 months or 6 months if you're not using your lift that often. But once you have a car loaded and your cables are stretched, do this often. That way you have your lift engaging and disengaging at the same time. All you're doing again is giving yourself some slack or tightening up the top locking nuts on each of the posts to make sure that this locking block is at the same height on all 4 posts. That is how you level your lift, okay? Now that we have our lift leveled and all of our locking blocks are hitting the same position on the post, we're going to drop the lift and engage the casters. For this, what you're going to do is disengage your locking blocks and your release lever on your motor. At the same time, you will hear hydraulic fluid going back into the reservoir, and you'll see the runways dropping, and they should be dropping at the same speed. I'm holding down the release valve and the brakes the entire way. If I let go of this handle right here, the locking blocks will engage automatically, and I would have to raise it to be able to disengage the brakes again. Now, I'm just bleeding out the hydraulic fluid, allowing the full weight of the runways to drop and engage. And as you can see, now we have the lift dropped, the casters are engaged and allow us to move the lift freely and putting it into position wherever that may be. Now that we have the weight of the runways completely dropped, you're going to see that the casters are fully engaged, giving you about, I would say, 3 inches from the floor, 2 inches from the floor, allowing you to move this lift freely. Now, some of the comments that we've had is sometimes these secondary locks engage or not disengaging very easily. All it is you see that there is a Allen head bolt right here on this insert. All you're doing is you can loosen this up, giving you just a little bit of pressure from the factory. You loosen it up a little bit. That way this can engage and disengage freely. That's all that is. It's going to be the same thing on all four corners, allowing this secondary lock to engage and disengage without any friction. That's all that is. You've completed the install of your lift. Now you're ready to put the accessories that your Pro and your Pro XL come with. This is your rolling jack tray. As you will see, these wheels are telescoping. All you're gonna wanna do is let them sit on the channel right here. These are Allen head bolts that you can tighten up once you have it in position. These are your drip trays. These will sit just in between the runway on top of the C channel. These are your ramps. You're gonna want to remove your casters. The casters are here just to allow you to move the lift into position. Once you have it exactly where you want it to sit, you can raise your lift, push the pin out, remove the casters, drop the lift, and now allowing you to be able to load a vehicle on freely. This is where your ramps will be put. Once you have a vehicle loaded on, always remember to put your stoppers back into place. Thank you for joining. We really appreciate you guys sticking around. We hope that you guys found this video useful. There is a lot of steps that are needed to install our lift, so we hope that we explained it as best as possible. There's small little tricks that you guys will find useful throughout our install. If you have any questions, we have representatives always available to take a call, so feel free to call us.